long talked about needing to uphold the standards of democracy. At the same time, South Korea has been an incredibly close ally to the U.S., to President Biden as well. You'll remember that the president had hosted then Prime Minister Kishida of Japan and President Yoon at the Camp David summit. The first time he was hosting world leaders there, he has developed a relationship with Yoon during his time in office. So it'll be interesting to see how exactly the White House navigates this, especially as Biden has really staked a lot of his political career on needing to uphold democracy.
Fascinating. It's good to have you, Arlette. And as you speak, I'm just getting more information into CNN. The chief of South Korea's, the president's own party, own political party, has condemned the introduction of martial law. Han Dong-hun, who previously served as President Yoon Suk Yeol's justice minister, said the move is, and I quote, wrong, and he would, quote, block it together with rival lawmakers. That is according to the Yonhap news agency. We're reporting that on CNN. The chief of the South Korean president's own political party suggesting that this martial law is wrong and that he would block it. And this these pictures now coming to us, what is it, 20 to 1 in the morning. This is the National Assembly, and this is where supporters of the opposition lawmakers have gathered. These are images of youngsters in support of that opposition party who have called on its leaders to go to the National Assembly. They want to vote down this martial law, which was announced just about 2 hours ago by the South Korean president. We've seen some scuffles, but it has to be said this has been relatively quiet outside the National Assembly. As far as we can tell, our team is on its way there now. Obviously, this is an emergency martial law instigated, which is going to make things a little bit more difficult as far as the media is concerned in South Korea going forward. These are images coming out of the National Assembly here now, and you can see that the army has been deployed. We have not heard from the defense minister, so it is unclear at this point whether the defense minister has actually acknowledged his agreement, suggested this move to the president of the country. Does look as if a little bit of tear gas is possibly being used there, can't tell. A little bit of gas of some sort at the National Assembly. Let's have a listen in.
퇴로액을 뿌린 것인지 그것은 지금 파악되지 않고 있습니다.
네, 맞습니다.
예, 지금 또 상황 어떻게 진행되고 있습니까? 지금 그러면 바리케이트를 치고 군 병력이 들어오지 못하도록 로텐더 홀 안으로 들어오지 못하도록 지금 또 무자진들이 막고 있는 상황인 거겠죠.
So images coming to us from Seoul in South Korea. Look, this is in and around the National Assembly, 2 hours after the announcement of martial law. This was an unannounced decision until the president appeared on national TV. This came as a big shock and a surprise, certainly to our correspondent, to those that we have spoken to, and I'm sure to people on the ground. Let's bring in Matthew Chance, who is our global affairs editor here at CNN, watching these pictures with me. A couple of hours in now after that announcement. Matthew, what are you hearing?
Well, it's still very shocking, isn't it, to see a country like South Korea, which was seen as a real pillar of stable democracy in Asia, to find itself convulsing in this kind of crisis, with its president declaring martial law, citing threats posed by North Korea's communist forces and anti-state elements. It caused all sorts of panic and chaos and uncertainty in the country and in the region, of course, as people were speculating about what this was all about. And I think what's started to emerge with these pictures of the Parliament building in Seoul, the South Korean capital, being with protesters heading towards the gates of the Parliament, with lawmakers inside, with troops inside the Parliament grounds as well. What's starting to emerge is the idea that this wasn't a sort of existential threat being faced by South Korea from its enemies in the north. This was much more of a kind of political maneuver undertaken by President Yoon, who is embattled on the political front in South Korea. The party that is in opposition to him has the majority in the South Korean parliament, and has been trying to get through, for instance, a budget law, which he's been opposed to, but he's been unable to veto it. There have been all sorts of corruption allegations against President Yoon, many of them surrounding his wife, who's accused of sort of peddling power and the misuse of power and other corruption charges. There were threats that she was going to be investigated as well. And even though we can't be absolutely certain at this stage, it does look like, as I say, this was a very sort of heavy-handed attempt, or this is a very heavy-handed attempt by President Yoon to maneuver politically and to silence his critics and the opposition inside the country. If so, you can see from those images right now, the people of South Korea, who are in the middle of the night now, are confronted with this new political situation in their country, do not look like they're going to take it lying down. As you can see those scenes there in those confrontations or clashes between protesters and the military in the area of the South Korean parliament in Seoul. Becky.
Look, we're going to take a very short break at this point. Stay with us, folks. We've got our chief global affairs correspondent, Matthew Chance, with us. We'll leave you as we go to the break with these images coming to us live from Seoul in South Korea.
This is how Japanese calligraphy ink, known as sumi, is made.
We knead it with our feet, so we can apply a little more pressure and it softens faster.
A well-kneaded mixture of soot and gelatin becomes high-quality ink. I'm here at Kobayan in Nara to see the process. Craftspeople have been making ink sticks here for almost 450 years. High-quality sumi sticks don't come cheap.
He's opening this box of ink, 132,000 Japanese yen, almost $1,000 US. I'm scared to touch it.
Calligraphers turn the sticks into liquid ink by rubbing them with water.
There's something called Call to Earth Day. It's really important for the Earth as a whole, for everyone, that we're doing the work that we're doing.
When I found out about the Call to Earth Day, I was like, wow, this really ties in with the Compton Initiative and Bright Lights of Compton is all about. So today we had a lot of different groups come out. We had a couple of Girl Scout troops partner with us on a really big mural project.
We got to paint 2 murals. I like painting.
The energy's been great. The girls have been lively, getting paint everywhere, of course, and these murals are beautiful.
I love seeing you guys out here and working hard.
I came out with Hermanos Unidos at UCLA. There were several projects going on today. We were able to do the garden. Doesn't look like much, but compared to when we got here, it's a major difference.
This is part of a broader effort that's going on all around the world. So I just call everyone forth. If you feel encouraged, you want to come out, get involved, get here on Call to Earth Day and do good in your community.
I'm first assistant director. It was my job to keep the actors from killing themselves.
I might be having a few side effects from my human growth hormones.
And I work with the director, assisting his vision.
I'd like to fire the sound.
You can't do that.
He's wearing the indoor scarf. I thought, oh.
It's a place where it's late at night in Seoul, but it's actually early morning now, 1 a.m. So you would see a curfew imposed. We haven't seen that extent. We haven't seen the military rolling in. It's not like martial law in the 1980s when tanks came in to crack down on protesters. There have been some scuffles, as you've been showing at the National Assembly with riot police. So it's not a total martial law. So but we don't know. We don't know if things could escalate, if things could get worse. But right now, it seems like he wants to shut down the government. And again, the motive behind it, we're not sure, other than he had very weak domestic political standing, and maybe he felt that he couldn't proceed forward without kind of shutting down the government and hitting the reset button. Yes, South Korea has a lot of political issues. Yeah, sure. Yes.
Apologies, I'm going to have to let you go because we have to take a very short break before the top of the hour. We will, though, continue with this breaking news after the break. So, viewers, please stay with us. Andrew, thank you for your analysis and insight, important to us as we continue to report on this story. The president of South Korea declaring emergency martial law.
Billions of dollars of programs that were important to him, including his insistence that they need to bolster their military protection in South Korea, often citing what he views as a growing threat from North Korea, which, in addition to sending weapons to Putin's war in Ukraine, has also dispatched something like 10,000 North Korean soldiers to that war as well, while blowing up roads that are linking North and South Korea. By the way, those moves, sending soldiers away from the North and to Ukraine and to Russia, would kind of go against the argument of President Yoon that North Korea is posing an imminent threat there in the South. But nonetheless, he cited North Korea as the reason for this martial law. His opponents believe that what he's really trying to do is to try to push through his agenda, including getting a budget passed. He feels is impossible with his opposition in control in parliament right now. So by enacting martial law, essentially banning political activity, taking control of the media, banning people from gathering in protest. I mean, all of these things are now essentially illegal under martial law. He could try to use the military to really quash dissent. Now, the caveat here is that the majority in parliament under South Korean law, they should be able to vote. And with a simple majority, they should be able to just overturn this. They should be able to say this martial law needs to end. And theoretically, the president and the military must comply. But as you see in these images, and this is all moving so quickly and so rapidly, but you have people trying to force their way into parliament. You have the military there, lots of unconfirmed rumors, and basically an entire nation, a democracy, just flabbergasted. And of course, huge concerns about what this is going to mean moving forward, this political chaos and instability for the South Korean economy.
Yeah, no, so many questions. And it's interesting because the president announced this martial law very late. It's in the middle of the night over there in South Korea right now, the intent to quash dissent. But the images we're seeing coming out of South Korea is not that. You are seeing an escalatory, tense situation there outside of the government building. I want to go to Mike Valeria to bring us there on the scene with what is unfolding, Mike.
Well, Rahel, we now have this ban, this declaration of martial law that has been overturned by Parliament. Will Ripley, our colleague in Taipei, was just saying it should take a simple majority of Parliament to overturn this, and that has happened within the past 2 to 3 minutes. Applause breaking out in the National Assembly. We're headed there now, but certainly a feeling of palpable apprehension of demonstrators trying to get to the National Assembly. We're seeing members of the military, law enforcement in their green camouflaged helmets and uniforms. And we had reports that these members of law enforcement were trying to stop members of the National Assembly from coming into the building to overturn this declaration of martial law. But enough members managed to get in. Again, 1:06 a.m. here in Seoul, and members of the National Assembly have overturned martial law in South Korea minutes ago. So now the question is, what does South Korea's president do now that lawmakers have overturned martial law in South Korea across the country? He did this as a way to reclaim power. He is a very weak president. His approval ratings hovering in the upper 20%. Conservative figure known in this country for decades as a strong prosecutor, as somebody who has taken a strong stance against North Korea and aggression coming from north of the DMZ. And he did this, as far as we can tell, because there have been unending calls to impeach him, to remove him from office. And he said in an address to the nation a few hours ago that this was his way of strengthening control of government, which he said has been paralyzed by these calls for his impeachment and calls to impeach other members of the government, heads of ministries that he installed as well. So the question is, how does the president respond? How does law enforcement and members of the military respond? I can tell you that we have early reports of law enforcement starting to pull back from the building. And you can see on the screen more and more people getting into the National Assembly. So we're going to see if this holds. But again, in a dramatic tableau, lawmakers in Seoul just voted to overturn martial law with applause ringing out throughout the building.
Really remarkable how quickly all of this is unfolding. Mike, my understanding is you are there, you're on the phone with us. Just help us understand what's happening there right now outside of that building.
Sure.
Obviously, we see the video, but you're able to see the full picture. So bring us there.
Yeah, we're on our way there. We're in our bureau in the center of the city because we weren't sure if we were going to be able to have a signal, if it was safe for us to broadcast. But, you know, the center of gravity of what is happening is at the National Assembly building. But I can tell you throughout the streets where we are in the center of Seoul right now, and as you move throughout the city, there are police officers on the phone who are wondering what is going on, who are calling their captains. You can overhear them in Korean saying, what are we doing? What is happening right now? There are people who are leaving bars, who are leaving restaurants, calling their moms, calling their dads, calling their children, saying, I'm coming home right now. This has not happened within the 21st century, a declaration of martial law, something that remains in memories of people from the 1980s when South Korea was still under a military dictatorship. So people are bracing for what the president, Yoon Suk Yeol,